All right, everybody, welcome back. This is going to be my part 4 video of this series on me going through the process of the internal assessment. Let's get started. Okay, so on my website now, if you go to the Mr. Walks website and the computer science IB page, organize things a little bit differently now, but if you scroll down and eventually find the internal assessment advice and help, here you can see part 1, 2, and 3 of the various videos I've already recorded. So in the last video, we started planning for data structures. And what we also did, in the last video was we went and grabbed the in-class example that I do with my 42 SIB class, where we learn things like stacks and queues and binary trees and searching algorithms and sorting algorithms. In addition, it also includes all the example code from my computer science 40S class, which includes advanced classes, and it includes collections, meaning the linked lists and things like that. Also in the 42 SIB class, we studied permanent storage or saving to a file. So all that code is going to be useful as it came up as part of our solution. Now that example also not only includes that stuff, but it includes units on recursion, which is covered at the 40S level, and it includes all the content of my computer science 30S course, or the grade 11. So that includes from the basic programming of variables, if statements, loops, and then methods, and then arrays, and then the beginning of classes, which is continued on into more advanced classes in the 40S. So all that content is in the one example. So using that, I combine that into our project. So now our electronic notes NetBeans project includes several packages, a collections package. Now in this, I know based on our planning that we're going to need a node and a linked list. We will need those. Will we need a binary tree? Probably not. A queue, a stack, a tree node? No. Probably not, but I'm not going to delete them yet. They came over with the package from the example. I'm going to hold on to them for now. We also have a data package. This data package is a package that we planned for. This is specific to this problem. So data structures, the note, and the notes class, along with the original main class. We also brought over an I/O package. This is the input-output package. Now, some of these are not going to be needed. You'll notice ones like JOptionPane, and you might think, well, what is that? That's usually part of Java. It is. In my I/O package, I override those APIs so that like when we do our in-class work, it doesn't display that dialog box. It creates a simulated dialog box. Anyways, so chances are the JOptionPane, the scanner, the simulator, the system, that stuff, the JFile chooser, these won't be needed. Those are just part of my learning in the computer science IB course to override the classes that are there. But these two we definitely might, right? File handlers for saving and opening from files, and even making little dialog boxes if, for example, an error occurs. There's our media package with the one picture we found so far. And then as well, there's our user interfaces that we built in part 2 of this video series, but along with a controller class. We worked that out in our UML diagram as well. This is not necessary, but it's sort of a stronger sort of programming paradigm of shifting the user interface design or view away from the logic that controls it, or sometimes called the model as well. But I don't want to get into all the details of that. That's not part of the IB curriculum. It's just a good idea to kind of organize our code. And then finally, there's this tools package that also was part of that example. So will we need a calculator? Probably not. That's just something that's used in that course to learn about recursion. Will we need images? Maybe. It may be that we want to manipulate an image, and there might be some useful methods in there. Will we need numbers for things like random numbers? I don't think so. But that's also a little iffy. Maybe, you never know. Definitely we'll need these two though. These two classes will definitely help with those algorithms. And we might even need the text class, who knows. And this dictionary.txt, that's actually just a file of dictionary words it's used by the text class when you do something like a random word. But nonetheless, I don't want to delete any of this stuff yet. I want to work with it. Okay, so we have our section A. We're starting to meet some of our minimal requirements. We've been working on our section B, although I do want to reformat it. Okay, I don't like the format. And here we are at this day here that I feel it's the day to maybe turn this record of tasks into a table. So I'm going to insert a table with some headers. So it'll have the date, it'll have the description of the task, but then I want to have a sort of column for which success criteria it's addressing. So I'm going to start with a sort of 3 by something table. So I'll have the date, caps lock is on, the description of the task that was performed that day, okay? And then which success criteria it matches. Which one does it match up with, which is part of our section A, okay? So for example, if I took this date, placed it in here, let's place it in this text for now. Okay, oh, I don't want it numbered. Why are you numbering it? Well, that's weird. Okay, here's my description. I can pop that in there. Again, I don't know why it's numbering it. Just wants to number it. Okay, so that's in there. And now I can cross-reference this with which success criteria. So potential user interactions, and I can even look at that one. That was this thing here. So that was where we were doing prompts, right? And we thought maybe that would be there. So that's basically minimal case requirements, D. So it's 3D. So if I use this as kind of an indexing system, it's minimal case requirements, section D. So I think I'll use that. That'll just be a handy way for me to update this thing here so that it's in 3D is the success criteria it matches up with. Okay, so this is going to be me transferring it from this sort of list I had here over to here. And I'm going to try and format this. You know, it's a table, so there's some preset designs I could look through here, make it look nice. You know, it is a document you're handing into the IB, so you want it to look decent. So I don't know, I'll pick that one just cause. Okay, so there we go. There's going to be our table. Maybe I'll do this so that everything's kind of lined up. All right, so let me just transfer these over. So take a moment of time here as I build this. And getting there. And I'll do the cross-referencing in a minute. That, 19th, and 20th, 21st. I'm going to have to insert a couple more. I'll just put a bunch in because we're going to have more in this. March 20th, March 20th, March 21st. If I turn these numbers off, that will stop it from numbering. This, and can I literally drag it? That works. Shrink this guy down. Shrink this guy down. Because this one's going to be the wide one. Back up a little bit here. So at least I don't have to retype it, okay? Okay, so that's pretty good. So that's my new record of tasks in table format now. So it's just an idea to change the format, and why I wanted it was that, and I also kind of gained some inspiration by looking through, and I'll just remind you of this, I looked through some of the past IAs from past students, because again, I'm simulating the experience of a student in this, doing this. So I went in here and I'm like, here's a link to sample IA projects. and I see the 72 different IA projects, and I opened one of them up, and I looked at the way they did their documentation for section B, and I saw a table, task, planned action, planned outcome. This is not a bad way to do it. Not a bad way there on that one. So maybe I want to mimic that one. Then I tried another one, right? So, and unfortunately the IB doesn't have a specific format for this. We've talked before about kind of what you want in terms of the marking scheme. I don't want to spend the whole video on this, but we'll get there, right? So, criterion A, let's see, can't find their criterion B on this one. Okay, so I don't know what's going on with this one. Let me try one more. And here we see a table as well, right? Got dates, maybe timeline might be another column to add, but I'm just gonna take that under consideration for now and just go with this, right? And which does this match up with? So maybe I'll just take a second to split screen this with my original section A, see if I can kind of split screen in these in and kind of match them up now. So the advanced user experience to include dialogues. Okay, so that's also 3D, right? Wanted more feedback. The user suggested a user interface. So that matches up now with me moving it into 2D. It's now matching up with that version of the sort of success criteria, okay? And then the user feedback, like the UI, and felt it would be a good user experience. So I'll put that in again. Development of my user interface. So now I'm actually developing it. So I'd say that was more like 1D, an advanced user interface, multiple forms and frames, okay? Then as I started examining data structures, right, I'm looking at the data structures that this is gonna happen, right? This is more now me moving in terms of the success criteria. If I have the data structures in place that I think I will, it'll essentially do more like 2B, right? Or 2B and 2C, right? Like those are the things it will address, those features, right? So that's just a suggested way I could potentially do this sort of written section differently than the way I had originally done it and now put it into table format, okay? I also think maybe instead of the design overview, and I'm not sure what to write there, I've kind of been doing it in this appendix. So what I think I'm going to do is transfer the stuff in my appendix over to my section B, right? So I'm going to transfer it over to here. Kind of makes the appendix useless. So I'm going to close the appendix. I might be done with it. I'm not entirely sure yet. Testing plan is still going to be something I'm going to have to work on. But now you can kind of see this is happening here. So I really don't need to say see appendix A, figure 1. So I'm going to do a find and replace on it. Find appendix A, comma, space. So find that, replace with nothing, and just replace them all, okay? There we go. So there, now it's just saying see figure 2, see figure 3, which just come up below here, right? So figure 1. Now I may end up writing a bit more in this as well, right? So figure 1, describe what it is here. So depending on how much of this my marker actually reads, because that's always something you assume your marker is going to read everything. And if it's me, I will. But that's always a bit of a risk with handing stuff into an external organization. So it might be that they just skim this part and then spend a little more time on this, especially the images might draw them in a little bit. So maybe just repeating a little bit of what I said here, like figure 1 is initial design ideas using prompts like system.out.println, etc., right? Like something like that, right, is my idea. That's kind of what would be kind of what's going on in this line below here, is something like that. Okay, Courier new. Okay, so that's the idea, right, is something like that. would be my figure 1. Okay, so there it would be. My figure 2, advancing the idea of a better user experience using dialogues like, and I'll use the J option, pane, etc. Okay, I don't think I need to get into too much detail on that, but you get the idea, right? So something like that for my figure 2. So I'm giving the person marking it something to read as they read through my design overview, right? See it in more detail. All right. I'm just going to up this a little bit. 14. I'm not going to spend an hour on this. And I'm not going to do those other ones right now. I want to get to some coding here, and I only want to do about 10 more minutes on this video. So I want to get some coding done here, rather than just worry about Word documents for this whole part of the video, right? So we got the design overview really starting to take shape now, okay? And I'm going to make an entry into this design overview as well for what we're about to do, okay? So this is now March 24th, 2022, okay? So what am I going to do today? What I want to do is start connecting some of the classes as outlined in my UML and establish relationships between the classes. For example, inheritance, association, usage, etc. Okay, so I want to establish those relationships that in the UML diagram I have little lines for, to build a connection between them. So this would also be like me kind of working on 2B, 2C. And maybe even, let me just take a quick look at my section A and close this. My section A, maybe even, am I getting into 1 yet? Advanced user interface, user can search the notes, or not really. So we're still building those connections there between the classes for our B section here. Okay. But we got a established plan here. So I'm going to make sure this is saved, my record of tasks. My section A is already saved. Okay. We're looking good. All right. So let's start with how this thing is going to come together. Obviously, everything starts at main. Main then launches the main user interface. Holding down the control key, it takes me to the constructor of this class, the main UI. This was a class built using the designer. So as the designer, I was able to use a lot of that. So the code really doesn't do a heck of a lot. Although I did add 2 lines right here to at least center it on the screen and make it visible for that. But now I want to start connecting this to other things. Just like I connected it to the Note UI, I'm going to remove that line. That was just for us testing purposes, just to see the design. And instead what I'm now going to do, and yes, I should comment this for sure, okay? But for now, what I want to do, because I want to put coding in, is I want to connect to those specific things. And what I'm going to connect to, as is outlined on my UML, and I'll show you that UML just so you can see, is the main UI is connected to the main controller, okay? So what I'm going to do is create that relationship. So the main controller, and I'm going to make it private. I'm going to encapsulate it in this class. And I'll just call it controller. I won't instantiate it there. I'll just declare it. And then after I construct my main UI, or during the construction process, now I'm going to make the connection. So the controller equals a new main controller. and I'm going to pass it a connection to this JFrame. But I might also want to pass it specific references to the things that the controller needs to control. And if we look at the design, what it's going to need to control is as it works, it's going to change that list box. That list box is going to get altered by the buttons and the actions. Because if you think about it, when I create a new note, and I can even look at my my design document here, it tells me a little bit that when I click new, it generates that new form. Okay. When I do see all, it updates the list box. When I delete, it might create a confirm dialog box and then update the list box. And then same, a lot of these things basically will be dialog boxes and updating the list box. Okay. So I'm going to pass it that list box called list one. That's it. I think that'll be good. Now I don't have a constructor in that class for that, but I can use this light bulb to create it. I'm not even going to bother looking yet. I know it's going to be there. I know it's going to be in there when I get there. Okay? All right, now the buttons. I'm going to go to the design and go to each button, for example, create new note, and I'm going to shift the logic from here over to that controller. So controller dot new note. I'm going to make a method that builds a new note. And again, I'm going to use the light bulb to do that. And I'm just going to copy this line, go to the next button, paste it in, rename the method. So this was the button that is displaying all notes. Display all notes, and let it go and create a method over there. And let's continue. This will be me displaying the selected note and create the method. And this will be me deleting the selected note. Okay. And, I forgot to do the light bulb. And then searching all notes. And then it'll be sorting all notes. Okay, let's make some methods. Create. Okay, now I am going to take a second to look over there in that class. So here they are. Here are a bunch of these methods, just the shell of the method, just sitting there waiting for action. You can see here the constructor connected to the main UI and that list box. I'm going to do some renaming when I get here, but at least the connection is made. Now, for testing purposes, if you really want to, you could do something just like a stub method. Just system out that this is the constructor, right? And that this, if this comes up, this is new note, right? So then I could like at least try to run it and see if when I click the button, does it launch this system.out happening over in the other class? The fact that I see this happening tells me it is. Okay, so that's good. Now, I'm not quite done yet. I'm going to go back to this main UI. I've connected all the buttons, but I might have to actually assign actions to other things other than the buttons. So I have to think a little bit now. What is the user's experience going to be? Is the user, for example, going to be clicking on the list box? Sure, they are. Okay. However, I've sent the list box a connection to it over to that other class. So I can kind of pick up on stuff over there. Will the user be double clicking and stuff like that? I don't think so. So that's not going to be an option I'm going to give them. But one thing I think the user is going to do is they're going to close this user interface, right? That's a button that we sometimes forget about is when they run this, they're going to click things like this close button. And that I want to trigger an event like saving my data to file. Similarly, as this program launches, I want to also signal an event, but I can do that through the constructor. But I want to do a closing option here. So I can do that by right-clicking on the J-frame, right? I can do this a couple ways. I can do it right on the designer in NetBeans, or, and I actually prefer doing it this way, over here in the navigator, just to make sure I'm selecting the right thing, because sometimes I accidentally right-click on a label or something like that. So here's the J-frame. I can kind of see my buttons and labels all here. So I'm just going to right-click, Events, right? Window, Closing. Okay, so I'm going to say, okay, when this happens, go over to the controller and fire off a closing event, whatever that is. Whatever that event is, okay, so whatever this is, do it. And let's just put in a little testing code to make sure this is work, that we are closing this J-frame. Okay, rather than put a lot of logic into this, I want to make sure all these things are, sometimes I use the term wired up, right? So as there you can see the word construct, because it constructed it. And now I'm closing, and there it's closing. So that's exactly what I wanted to have happen. What this allows me to now do is leave this class alone. I don't have to come back to it. All the logic has been shifted from here over to my other class. So maybe I should finish this class by documenting it, but that's where we're going to pick up on our next video. That's, I think, enough for today. We've started this process. We'll be picking back up on it next time. All right, everybody. I realize that these videos may be coming a little slower than you like, but I'm doing my best to get it on track here at a busy time. We'll see you next time.